Imagine yourself a condemned soul, trapped within the cold, unforgiving walls of a prison cell, the specter of death looming over you like a shroud. Each tick of the clock is a hammer blow to your dwindling hope, a grim reminder of the inevitable end that awaits. Suddenly, one fateful day, the jangling of keys and the hurried footsteps of the warden break the monotonous silence. He bursts into your cell, a flicker of something unusual in his eyes, and utters words that pierce the veil of despair.
"You, prisoner, your execution was scheduled for 200 days from now, but headquarters has a proposition, a peculiar task."
He pauses, letting the weight of his words sink in, his voice dropping to a near whisper.
"If you succeed, your life will be extended by a year. Do you accept?"
Answer this question in the comments below. Now, this isn't some monumental undertaking. Nothing compared to the backbreaking labor you've endured. It's a chance, a sliver of light in the abyss. You are to represent the local prison in a baseball game. Victory could mean a prolonged life, perhaps even a commutation of your death sentence. But defeat would tighten the noose, bringing your execution date ever closer. Word of this bizarre bargain spreads like wildfire through the prison's gloomy corridors. The condemned men, their hearts ignited with a desperate hope, clamor to participate. And so, from the depths of despair, a baseball team comprised of 12 hardened criminals is forged, the Wyoming Prison All-Stars. We find ourselves in the tumultuous early 20th century America, a period of profound societal shifts. Industrialization fuels economic growth, but it also widens the chasm between the rich and the poor. Crime rates surge, and the iron fist of the law comes down hard, transforming prisons into cauldrons of conflict and desperation. The Wyoming State Penitentiary, notorious for its harsh regime and deplorable living conditions, stands as a testament to this grim reality. Nestled in Rawlins, Wyoming, it's one of the oldest prisons in the United States, its history steeped in darkness since its opening in 1901. The environment is bleak, damp, and bone-chillingly cold, a breeding ground for desperation and despair. No water, no electricity, the inmates exist in a perpetual state of suffering. In the prison's early years, inmates were forced into labor at a makeshift factory owned by the cunning Otto Graham. He and the warden, two vultures circling the condemned, quickly struck a deal to exploit the prisoners as cheap labor. It was a win-win. The warden filled his pockets, and the entire prison system festered with corruption. The inmates toiled, earning a meager 57 cents a day, crafting brooms. Each man was expected to produce 60 brooms daily, a grueling quota enforced with brutality. They were treated as less than human, subjected to relentless abuse if they faltered. The food was barely enough to sustain them. This reign of terror persisted for a decade, until in 1911 the corrupt warden was finally apprehended. The exploitative labor project was shut down, and a new warden, Felix Alston, was appointed. He believed that oppressive physical labor wouldn't reform the inmates, but would only fuel their rage and extremist tendencies. Alston, a man of unconventional methods, sought to elevate the prisoners' morale and instill a sense of obedience through a large-scale prison reform. He understood the power of public sentiment and the entertainment value of sports, and what better way to achieve his goals than to establish a prison baseball team? Felix firmly believed that the burgeoning sport of baseball could transform the prison's oppressive atmosphere. The team's core ideal was simple: to provide inmates with an outlet for their pent-up frustration, a stage for self-expression, and perhaps a path to redemption. The prison administration, however, saw a deeper potential. A successful team wouldn't just capture public attention, it could generate significant revenue for the prison, a perfect two birds, one stone scenario. And so, a group of inmates, men serving life sentences, and even those facing the death penalty, were handpicked. In July 1911, this motley crew of criminals took the field for the first time. Their ages ranged from 18 to 39. The roster was a chilling collection of outcasts: 3 rapists, 1 fraudster, 5 thieves, and 3 murderers. They were christened the Wyoming Prison All-Stars, undoubtedly the most infamous sports team in history. Let's delve into the team's captain, a murderer named George Saban. In a brutal turf war, he had gunned down a shepherd and burned 2 others alive, earning himself a 25-year sentence. The star pitcher, 20-year-old Thomas Cameron, a coal miner from Tennessee, possessed a powerful arm, but his talent was overshadowed by his conviction for rape. Then there was infielder Joe Gazzardo, guilty of manslaughter. First baseman Eugene Rowan, convicted of rape. Second baseman Frank Fitzgerald, a burglar. Third baseman John, convicted of grand larceny. Center fielder Sidney Porter, a fraudster. And right fielder Joseph Seng, convicted of first-degree murder. The rest were relegated to the bench. Before the first pitch was thrown, the warden secretly revealed the chilling stakes to the team. For the death row inmates, victory meant a chance at a reprieve, perhaps even a commutation to life imprisonment. But defeat would only hasten their execution, possibly even leading to an immediate death sentence. The inmates were stunned, their blood running cold. This wasn't just a game, it was a gamble with their very lives. But they were trapped with no other recourse. This was their only chance to alter their fate, a desperate roll of the dice. After all, it was just a worthless life. Why not risk it all? But behind this seemingly breathless life and death struggle lay a sinister game of capitalist amusement. The prisoners exerted every ounce of their strength on the field, hoping for a lighter sentence. Outside the walls, the games drew massive crowds. It wasn't just about entertainment. It was a capitalist betting ring. Many spectators came with the sole purpose of profiting from wagers. Even the warden and prison officials placed substantial bets on their team's victory. In the early 20th century, America was gripped by baseball fever, and alongside it, illegal gambling thrived. In some cases, the prison administration was the puppet master behind the betting system. They used the games to attract a flood of gamblers, and the prison raked in profits from field fees, ticket sales, and even a clandestine share of the betting proceeds. Rumors swirled that the prison administration might even be manipulating the game's outcomes to ensure their own gambling profits. Nevertheless, the game proceeded as scheduled. On a bright and sunny July 18, 1911, the Wyoming Prison All-Stars played their inaugural game. The setting was peculiar, to say the least. A group of prisoners was escorted to a field within the prison walls under the watchful eyes of armed guards. Yet, these constraints did little to dampen the game's fervent atmosphere. The spectators were enthralled by the tension and drama, while the players sought a fleeting moment of freedom in every swing and every sprint. In the end, the All-Stars triumphed over a local amateur team with a resounding 11-1 victory. Death row inmate Joseph Seng even smashed 2 home runs. News of the All-Stars' victory became an instant sensation, splashed across newspapers nationwide. In an era starved for entertainment, this bizarre tale transformed these hardened criminals into overnight celebrities. Joseph Seng, the game's top scorer, became a figure of immense importance within the prison walls. Rumors spread that victories could lead to reduced sentences. Seng, whose stellar performance had initially earned him a death sentence for killing his wife's lover, was scheduled to be executed on August 22, 1911. But this victory granted him a precious opportunity to appeal. He pleaded with the state government for a stay of execution, citing their upcoming second game against the amateur team in August. Soon after, the players reconvened for training. The previous victory had catapulted the All-Stars into the public eye, and gamblers eagerly placed their bets on the team's continued success. Sure enough, on August 4th, the All-Stars once again defeated the amateur team with an 11-1 score. 9 days later, they secured their third consecutive victory. In each of these games, Joseph Seng displayed exceptional skill, his talent undeniable. Meanwhile, the other inmates in the prison grew increasingly envious, gnashing their teeth in frustration. It seemed that winning games truly did lead to reduced sentences, as Joseph Seng, who was supposed to be executed on August 22nd, was still alive on the 23rd. Many inmates, consumed by jealousy, plotted to harm Seng, sparking riots. The prison had to deploy guards to protect him, leading to several escape attempts. On August 27th, the All-Stars and the Rollins amateur team faced off in their fourth and final game, their first public match. It's worth noting that the Rollins team's strength was not to be underestimated. Just a week prior, they had tied with the league's powerhouse, the Indiana Cheyenne. The Indiana Cheyenne had, since the beginning of 1911, secured their second consecutive Rocky Mountain League championship, with an impressive record of 70 wins, 25 losses, and 5 ties. Moreover, 3 players from the Indiana Cheyenne would later be drafted into Major League Baseball. This comparison highlights the formidable strength of the Rollins team. In their final showdown, the All-Stars, fueled by their desperate desire to live, once again vanquished the Rollins team with a score of 15-10. However, this game was conspicuously absent from the newspapers, perhaps to avoid further public outcry. After their victory, the inmates were immediately returned to the state penitentiary, stripped of their uniforms, and confined back to their cells. The All-Stars had performed remarkably in all 4 games. But just as the warden was about to fulfill his promise, the then-governor penned a letter expressing his concerns about the prison baseball team. He believed that using sports to shorten sentences could create a negative public perception. Furthermore, he had uncovered widespread gambling activities surrounding the games. Bound by his superior's orders, the warden had no choice but to comply. A month later, he assembled the team and delivered the crushing news. The so-called sports rehabilitation program was merely an experiment that had now concluded. The prison would revert to its standard inmate education program, and the team was to be disbanded. There would be no more such experiments. The players were devastated, their hopes dashed. Why the sudden betrayal? Joseph Seng, in particular, was distraught. He had poured his heart and soul into those games, all in the hope of exchanging his death sentence for life imprisonment. But now it was all for naught. He relentlessly wrote to the governor, pleading for a commutation of his sentence, but his numerous appeals were all denied. By early April of the following year, after sending dozens of letters, he still hadn't received the pardon he so desperately sought. Instead, he received a new execution date, May 24th, 1912. At 2:45 a.m. on that fateful day, Joseph Seng, his head covered, ascended the gallows. He stepped onto the trapdoor, the noose tightening around his neck. In less than a minute, he was strangled, his life slowly ebbing away. At 2:54 a.m., 3 doctors pronounced Joseph Seng dead. He was the first person to be hanged at the Wyoming State Penitentiary. Today, at the old Rawlins prison site, a tombstone can be found, bearing the detailed information of Joseph Seng. Seng's lawyer had once tried to defend him, but the defense was short-lived. The team had ignited a media frenzy across the nation, and the escalating controversy even impacted the laws of other states. The state government had to find a way to quell the team's activities. However, rumors persisted that the governor and the warden were deeply involved with the baseball team, not just in gambling, but in widespread corruption. To silence these rumors, the governor launched a special anti-gambling campaign, and the sacrificial lambs of this campaign were the members of the All-Stars. The inmates had earned respect, but were ultimately defeated by the overwhelming force of authority. But it's worth pondering. If a death row inmate's life or death could be determined by the outcome of a sporting event, what purpose do prisons and laws truly serve? The very existence of this prison baseball team was a blatant violation of the law. But beyond that, the warden's manipulation of the team for personal gain, the corruption that permeated from the prison to the state government, from gambling to bribery, all reflected the grim reality of the American prison system at the time. Prisons were not institutions of rehabilitation, but rather tools for generating profit. From a modern perspective, this is a fascinating and chillingly dark chapter of history. And with that, our story comes to a close. What are your thoughts on this prison baseball team? Feel free to leave your comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. See you in the next video.